The issue of drug abuse has become a source of concern among youths, and some say it is the primary reason why many youths have been incarcerated, as well as being a source of crime and health problems in our society today. A recent survey on the prevalence of drug abuse among adolescents in Nigeria indicates that 65% of high school students use drugs to have a good time. 54% just want to experiment to see what it is like, and 20 to 40% use drugs to alter their moods. In November 2017, a former Director General of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, LANRE IPINMISHO, raised an alarm that the incidence of drug abuse was on the rise in the country, especially the north. He said specifically that there was need to address the growing problem of illicit drugs. Many adults now wonder, how did we get to this stage? What are we doing to rehabilitate and reintegrate drug abuse victims back into the society? This is our focus on Nigeria Today. Welcome and thanks for joining us on this midweek episode of the program. My name is Kande Daniel. Welcome back. I have two guests on the program today to talk about rehabilitation of drug abuse victims. Otumba LANRE IPINMISHO, former Director General, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, is an authority on the matter and is also passionate about it. He is seated to my far left. You're welcome to the program.
Good evening. Good evening, Nigerians.
We also have Engineer Aisha Aliyu Tafida, who is Project Coordinator, Parents Against Drug Abuse, PADA for short. Aisha is also Deputy National Coordinator, Community Intervention Network on Drugs, CIND, and Chairperson, Pitch Projection Injecting Drug Users. That's a lot of involvement and commitment, Aisha. You're welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, Nigerians.
Please, let me begin with Aisha. Prepare us for this half-hour discussion on drug abuse victims, rehabilitation, and all of that, by telling us in plain language, what is drug abuse?
Yeah, drug abuse is not necessarily taking codeine or marijuana. Common panadol can be drug abuse also. And is a substance use. The substance use of it, you abuse it, you take it over and over again just to get high or to cure some underlying issues. That is why people take it.
Wrong use.
Wrong use, yes, of it. Yes.
And quickly, I'd like to ask both of you, or should I say three of us, are we in agreement that as of today, drug abuse is a huge problem in Nigeria? Otumba?
Most certainly, yes. Most certainly, more frightening than I can gather enough energy to tell you now. It's more frightening than that. Drug abuse in Nigeria is a reality. It is in almost every other home. And there's nobody now who have a senses that does not know 1, 2, 3 people that are on drugs and are addicts. So it's something of concern to parents, to employers, to religious organizations, to everybody that wants a peaceful country. Drug abuse is of a major concern.
If it's of a major concern, means automatically it requires major interventions. Now, before we get into those interventions, there are some terminologies: drug abuse, drug addiction. How different? How related? Aisha?
Drug abuse and drug addiction. Yes, from the drug abuse you get into drug addiction. As I said, They use it to treat underlying problems in them. It's not that they are using it because they want to use it, but they have a problem. Some of them, they will use so many excuses. I can't have a job, I can't have business, I don't have capital, I don't have. So what they want to do is to keep taking these drugs so that they can keep getting, you know, getting away from this reality.
Escape into the drugs.
Yes, exactly. So they become addicted at the end of the day. So the drug control them at the end of the day. So by introducing these drugs into you, even when you find a job or you find a capital to do business, at the end of the day, the drug is still in you, and you've already introduced your blood to this drug, and you become addicted to it. So you have to keep taking more. The blood will be asking you, I need more. The drug is controlling you, so you can't stop. You have to go into rehabilitation. That is how you can stop it. But
yeah, Otumba, it's scary. She just mentioned what some of us lay people keep imagining is not true. These things get into the drug system, and the victims actually get into a health condition. So we do need to talk about treatment.
Yes. Yes, that's why all over the world, an addict is not treated, or a user even, abuser is not treated as a criminal. It's a health issue. He needs help. Regardless of the violence, he's not a criminal. He needs help. And considering how stressed our health sector is, it requires a serious determination from the government to that this is an issue. If not, our health system is already too weak to carry our regular problems. Not to talk of drug addiction, which of course you cannot ignore. It will bring down the whole family, it will bring down the whole nation. That is the truth.
Aisha, talking about treatment, just what type of treatment and from who would these victims get it?
Talking about treatment, we still have a long way to go because we don't have treatment centers in Nigeria. We have very few, and are they really doing treatment, or are they doing, you know, there is rehabilitation and there is treatment, there is detox. So some of them, they get into, to my own surprise anyways, getting into the community level of work. Not, I'm not talking about Abuja, where people can afford to go to a rehab center or to treat themselves. Go into the community level where the drug addiction is there. They normally refer them to psychiatric centers. And in this psychiatric center, is it really a psychiatric problem, or is something to have a detox?
That's the question.
And then from the detox to rehabilitation before it gets to psychiatric. So you have to take it step by step. But to my own surprise, you know, we don't really have good treatment centers in the community level. So they refer them to psychiatric level, and then from there they spend a few months in the psychiatric center, and then at the end of the day, they ask them to go. So did they really rehabilitate them? Did they really treat the underlying problem? And then the other rehabilitation centers we have are just detox centers, where they detox you and ask you to go. And then that's where relapses comes in. Because by the time you get out of the detox centers, they not rehabilitate you, treat the underlying problem, then you have to go back to drugs.
Otumba, Engineer Aisha has just raised some questions, you know. Could you answer that question, having served in governmental circles before now? Are we taking these cases the right way? Are we giving treatment the right way? Are we following this thing stage by stage appropriately? What are we doing wrong and what are we doing right?
Yeah, regrettably, it's all no. We're not. We're not. We are not even scratching. So victims or clients or patients are left in the hands of only God knows. NDLEA has a responsibility for rehabilitation, but that is the least attended to department, because everybody is more concerned about enforcement. And the question we keep asking is, even in countries that have all the resources for enforcement, have they won the battle? You don't have the resources for the enforcement. That was why it's, you know, people were excited with the ban in quotes now until we get what the meaning of banning is. banning of Benylin with codeine, syrup with codeine, syrup, cough syrup with codeine. You are just adding to the problem of enforcement that you have not been able to achieve. For instance, cannabis is banned, isn't it? Cocaine is banned. But if you want, you will get them. So it's not exciting for me as somebody who is in the field and who knows what is happening. It is just that, okay, it's been sold for like 1.5. Now the next thing your supplier will tell you is that this is difficult now. It's now 5,000 per bottle. An addiction, you will buy it and you will be excited to get more. So my fear is that, like she said, I absolutely agree with him that we are pretending about rehabilitation. We don't have. We don't have. There are individuals who are making efforts and they are even still being frustrated by the system. Instead of calling them and regulating properly, you shut down here and there. Call them if they are not qualified, tell them they are not qualified, and get the qualified ones to do it. We need this. There has to be a vehicle to take this problem on right now. It cannot wait any longer.
Otumba, actually I'm interested also, in addition to everything you have said, well taken, in knowing whether there is any kind of conversation or collaboration that could go on between non-governmental platforms to which both of you and some other interested persons probably belong, with the government platforms to achieve these results.
Yes. Now that the reality has landed on everybody, at everybody's door, people are beginning to listen. We are more concerned about structures in our universities. You are not concerned about the content, the student, the personnel content, the students that will take the lectures in the rooms. You should be more concerned. Are these students in the right frame of mind to be able to take the lectures that you are building the lecture theaters for? Be concerned now about the... Now, let me tell you, I heard of recruitments in some of the security agencies. If they start screening those they will absorb now, you will find out a lot of states, particularly in the northern Nigeria, will not be able to fill their quota. It's as bad as that. So the point we are now is that it requires a government pronouncing an emergency in this sector so that everybody wakes up and everybody is focused on the problem. If not, you know, it's killing the parents, it's killing a lot of mothers don't sleep. A lot of them, they are moving corpses because of their children on drugs, carrying it in their heads. A parent was going to bed, he wasn't sure what the son was going to do to him before the morning. How many like that all over the place? So it's something that we need to wake up to, the reality that, okay, look at our budget on Boko Haram. Spend 5% of it on this issue, and the Boko Haram will start going down, because there cannot be Boko Haram without drugs.
Now that you have talked about budget, talking about money, on what specifically, Aisha, do you suggest we should, assuming we get the funds now placed on the table, what do you recommend we do practically with these funds towards making sure that our young men and women stop abusing drugs?
Yes. What can be used with the money is to make sure that you get into the community level and build in community centers, what we call drop-in centers, where an addict will feel free himself, you know, to get into the center and say, I need help. That encourages, because if you are waiting for your parents or the family to take a child into that, no. But the drug addict himself should be confident to know, or even the family themselves to know, that in this community we have a center where we can go and seek help. So if government can be able, or the funding can be able to go into those community centers, to build in the community centers, and then from there to rehabilitation centers, you know, which is, it can help. But anything that to do with sensitization and yeah, going to schools and so on, I know that NGOs are doing a lot on that direction. But when it comes to treatment, You know, very few NGOs can have funding to treat addicts. So the funding should go into communities, community center, that's what we call drop-in centers, where an addict can feel free to walk in there and say, I have a problem. And they will, you know, treat him the way it's supposed to be.
Right. We'll still have a few areas to touch on the matter, but we'll take a break right here. We're pausing to go to the streets and take responses from some Nigerians on the issue of drug abuse. How did we get here? What is there to do?
Most parents, they don't care. They don't even know the whereabouts of their children. They don't know if their children feed or what they do. You see a child below 10 running the streets. If that child starts abusing drug, who will tell the person or tell the child you're doing something wrong when the parents are not there?
Drugs are being abused because youths, most of the times it happens because there are a lot of peer pressures. The kind of people that the kids move around with. That's why parents need to be very cautious of who their children move with or be in company with. Because along the line, when you are being pressurized to do some things that is contrary to what you believe in, that's what leads into drug taking.
You know, presently, all right, we have a large percentage of youth unemployment. Okay, and you know that an idle man is the devil's workshop. If our youths are properly engaged, there won't be time for hard drugs. I mean, to go on hard drugs and all of that.
Like some people, even if they are taking care of them, when they see what others are doing, they want to say that, like now, maybe I'm following a friend that is smoking, and if I like it, I will say me too, I want to join. But if I don't like it, I will not, because it's not a good thing.
I don't blame them. Some take it due to unemployed at they are idle. They used to take it to drive away their sorrows and all these things. You know, it's the drugs. But it needs to be bound, because if we continue leaving it so that people will be taking it, and once people are taking it, it will hinder these generations. And I think it's a bad art.
You notice that some guys now put themselves into all those type of doing hard labor work, and in the process of doing that, they have to take some things that will enable them, and they didn't know, from their own mind, they didn't know that what they are taking is what will kill themselves.
Welcome back. This is Nigeria Today, and we're talking about drug abuse victims and rehabilitation. I still have my guests, Otumba IPINMISHO and Haja Aisha, experts on the matter. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard our respondents. Not a sweet matter to respond to. They identified a few causative factors: lack of parental attention, peer groups, pressure, and somebody said idleness. If you don't have a job. Do you think that makes a lot of sense, Otumba?
Well, it's an old saying that it will be difficult for me to disprove now, but the reality is that in the field, you see people who have jobs, very good jobs, and they're on drugs. Very good jobs, and they're on drugs. Men in military uniform, police, immigration, bankers, medical doctors, pharmacists, and they're addicts. It's a much more serious thing than that. And in any case, somebody says, oh, I'm thirsty, but you have petrol in your phone. Why don't you take a cup and drink? You won't drink because you know that that's not water. Why will you go to drugs because you don't have a job? By the time the job comes, you can no longer be employed because you have destroyed yourself. So it is not an appealing excuse, and no excuse is good enough to take drugs. Even for the, like I have a case of sickle cell. And you know how it is, sickle cell patients, anything that can bring relief, you want. So they start giving this heavy dose of things that contains addictive substances. I don't want to mention them so that somebody will not so go and start again looking for it. And you discover that even when they don't have crisis, they want the drugs because of addiction. Because it makes you feel cool. In the face of all these problems, you are cool. That is the truth. And again, if it's unemployment, you're talking of those who are poor, those who want money. There are people that, even if you employ them, their parents are already giving them more than what their principal, who would engage them, is going to give them. You understand? He's already earning $500,000 from his father. So it's not about job. It's not about hunger. It's about behavior. It's a behavioral problem that we need to not to allow any excuse for. Because you say you are taking it because you like job. You are taking it, you are not going to ever get a good job. The moment you are tested positive to drugs, nobody wants to engage you. Number one. Number two, from the reaction to, I agree absolutely with the fellow that said parental care. We don't pay attention anymore. And if you ask them, they say they are running around for school fees. School fees for who? For somebody that is already destroyed by drugs? So this is double jeopardy. Your money you are paying. Somebody went to check his son in England, got to the school and proudly mentioned the name of the son, who is supposed to be 400 level. And the school said, we don't know him. He had dropped out more than 3 years ago, and he will only be found at the center where they smoke. So these are the parental care. Most of the boys you interview in clients, they tell you that my father didn't have attention for me. I just wanted to get back at him, so I joined this group. All these boys that you are ignoring and girls that you are ignoring in the house, there are more than 50 boys waiting for them at your gate to take them into drugs. And sometimes it can consume the whole family. So they've all made sense. It's just that I'm afraid, am I really talking to anybody? We've been lamenting for 10 years in this studio. Is anybody listening?
Definitely, Otumba. People are listening and government is listening. Whether the impact is going to be much or not, the fact that some action was taken or has been taken, concerning banning a particular substance means that a listening is happening, and we should continue to proffer suggestions. We're quickly running out of time, but I'd like us to tie up that process and suggestions going with the process, going now from rehabilitation to reintegration. Engineer Aisha, how do we take these victims from rehabilitation to proper reintegration? It's not an easy task, is it?
Yeah, it is not an easy task, because as to some level of what he's saying is he's right on the way that the government has to put in place, because as we said, the generation, it's very painful to see somebody's child on the street doing these drugs, or he can even call that I have a parent, but he's on the street. We know where we see them, and then at the end of the day, rehabilitation center coming out and then relapses. It goes back to the same thing, because there is not really something on ground for them to do, or the society itself, doesn't encourage someone doing something. It's just all about my parents is this. If your parents have money, then you are okay. You can always go back and take the money. And then the ones that comes out, they really want to do something. Your child wants to go into tailoring, or wants to go into farming, or wants to sell something. You as a parent, you are thinking, no, this is what I want my child to do. I don't want him to be this. I want him to be a police officer or a doctor or this. So that really kills somebody's brain, because he doesn't really want to be a doctor. He wants to be a tailor. And then as a parent, you are saying, because I do this and you have to do my... The world is changing. It's not in our own time. The world is changing. We have a lot of social media. They go through it. They want to explore a lot of things. So if we can encourage them to do what they want to do, and then not to show them the big way of doing it, but at least start small and struggle bit by bit. I think we can have a better, I can't say drug-free nation, but at least it can improve.
Definitely.
Yes.
Otumba, by way of coming towards a conclusion, let's address briefly the issue of stigmatization. We know that is a real issue, you know, because these victims are known. Even after they've been rehabilitated, successfully or otherwise, the stigma is still there. How do we handle that?
Yes. It requires understanding that it's a medical issue that can be treated, just like malaria can be treated, and you don't still keep running after him that this guy has malaria. You understand? It's something that requires a little bit of patience. Like you said, reintegration requires some understanding that is treatable, number one. Number two, and he can be trusted once again. And you don't keep taunting him after he comes back from rehabilitation. You don't keep, you draw him near, very close, and trust him. Before he went into the rehab, if you put down your phone, he steals it, your wristwatch he sells, and all that. You forget about all that. If not, you get him back into depression again, then he looks for how to get high. And again, it requires patience. Lapse is not relapse. You may find out once in a while that, oh, he broke the rules again. Don't condemn him. Immediately draw him near. Let him be free to talk to you. You are looking worried. Is it this issue? Let him explain to you. Be interested. That is what is most important. You know, when these boys are ignored with so much in their mind, it leads them to back to drugs. So I think is a good beginning for us as a nation to accept that this is an issue that must be that we must focus on. If not, it has the capacity to destroy a whole nation.
Thank you very much. I must at this point thank you, because we have actually run out of time. Thank you for coming to share your thoughts and perspectives. First, a sign of Engineer Aisha Ali Tafida, Project Coordinator, Parents Against Drug Abuse, as well as former Director General, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Otumba LANRE IPINMISHO. Thank you for the wonderful perspectives you have shared. And we thank you for watching Nigeria Today. And remember, you can watch the program online at www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. My name is Kandi Daniel. Thank you. See you next time.